Hello everybody, today we are going to explore part 3 of your argumentative essay writing. We have really covered difference between discursive and argumentative essay. We have learned how to identify argumentative essay questions. We have written thesis statements, and now we are learning counterarguments and rebuttal. And the use of persuasive language should be covered in another video. So, we will be focusing on writing body paragraphs and giving your main point to explain and justify your view. This is very important, and as you know, we have learned the idea of PEEL, and we will be using that for our body paragraph now. So, when you take a look that's highlighted in PEL, sometimes people get confused over the terms, and we shall explore this idea now. And when you talk about a topic sentence, which is really the main point, it encapsulates your main point. It shows what is your main point, and this main point must be clear and concise, and most importantly, answers the question, which is the essay questions. Next, we have the second E, which is some students like to call it elaboration, some teachers like to call it explanation. It develops your main point in a logical and coherent manner so that people can understand you, and it moves from one point to another. Coherent means that people understand the logical reasoning from one to another. And usually this is achieved by using the same idea of reason of argument, and it could be following the same concept or idea or the noun that is being followed for the previous sentence. Next, we have evidence. It substantiates your main point. It can be a form of examples, statistics, expert opinions, case study, and these are not limited to what is being mentioned here. There's actually more, but it has to be reliable. Next, last but not least, we have link, which is actually the concluding statement. It iterates the main points and affirms your view towards the topic at hand, and it sums up the current paragraph and possibly link to your next paragraph. So let's take a look here. We shall be reading through this sample body paragraph, and I find the topic sentence, elaboration, explanation, and evidence. There's no link here, so there will be link here, but that is not the focus. So, free speech as a human rights cannot be applied to any society without any restrictions. Certain individuals who take this as a sign that all opinions are beyond reproach might express views that offend the beliefs and values of others, or discriminate against another race or religion. Take for instance the case of Amos Yee, a teenager who posted videos on media sharing platform YouTube that insulted Christianity and Islam. He showed little regard for the two faiths, and his irresponsible act hence stoked anger among the Christians and Muslims community in Singapore and worsened the country's social stability. This case demonstrates clearly that to preserve social harmony, it is important to have some restrictions on free speech. And I shall pause here for you to take note of which is the point in your notes, and which is elaboration, explanation, and evidence. Okay, now we'll show you the answer. The first one, usually the point comes first, which is your first sentence. Second, from certain individual all the way to religion, is your elaboration. Okay, or you can call it explanation. So it elaborates on the idea of what is really a free speech and how is it applied to the what actually is being implied when you are talking about free speech. And when the free speech, the condition is that you shouldn't be offending other people's beliefs and values. Okay, we give an example because of the word take, for instance. It's very clear that it's evidence. Or we can use for example. There is a number of ways that you can actually present this idea. Or for instance, for an example. So, last but not least, we have the link, which is at the back. It shows a link back to the idea of free speech, and it's important that we should have some restriction. Okay, please take note that a link is not repeating the same point. It's actually an idea of how your argument has flowed, and you should do some form of rephrasing when you are looking at the link. Moving on. So, we ask this very important question. Would your essay be credible if your writing is solely focused on explaining your view? Well, the answer is no. You should acknowledge alternate views to remain credible. Otherwise, your writing will be very biased, you'll be lopsided, no longer objective, and people will not believe you. You are just, in other words, ranting. You need to have a counter argument to acknowledge alternate view, but then you weaken their argument by rebutting it to affirm your own view, and that is the way to go. So we take a look at this counter argument / rebuttal, and we explain how the paragraph helps to strengthen the writer's point. You should take notes that is usually place counter argument first, then you place a rebuttal. You don't place a rebuttal, then you place a counter argument. The order is actually very important. So many will argue that free speech is a universal right and should not be compromised, whatever the circumstance. Singapore, hence, cannot restrict free speech just to preserve racial and religious harmony. Yet, the consequences of free speech without restrictions are obvious and will be highly destructive of Singapore's social fabric. If individuals use inflammatory language against other races or religions and go unpunished, different racial and or religious groups might turn against one another, compromising the peace and stability of Singapore. So please take a time, and you can pause now to decide whether which one is counter argument and which one is the rebuttal. Alright, okay, time's up. If you need more time, please pause here. If not, we'll be moving on. So, many will argue that free speech is a universal right all the way until to preserve racial and religious harmony is to argue that it is important because it is your right, it is your basic fundamental rights, and that will be a counter argument to placing restriction on free speech. But you counter argument, you see the proportion? So actually you mentioned that in possibly 1 or 2 sentences. Then after that you counter your counter argument, which is called a rebuttal. So using yet to showcase that it is the opposite. You can say on the contrary, you can say however. The consequences, because if you allow free speech, it will be highly destructive. You'll possibly cause Singapore to go to chaos and compromise the peace and stability of Singapore. So this counter argument, which is what other side would most probably say, is not valid. So just to recap what is in a body paragraph, you should take note of your topic sentence, your elaboration, your evidence, and your statement. And something else to add on is that do not invent false statistics. That is totally redundant, and you should not do that. Because if you can suggest something, the teacher can most probably find out on the internet. And provide reasons for substantiating your main point. So you do not just throw the evidence, make sure that you actually explain your evidence as well. Okay, so moving on, writing a conclusion, very important. Some people remember the first and the last, and your conclusion is your last paragraph. So to answer this question of how to write it, you need to understand this upright triangle where we will be talking. So you need to reinstate thesis statement, summarize main points, and the impact statement. If you look at the triangle, why is it inverted, or is it called the upright triangle? It's the idea that you should be giving more length to the back in terms of more words to impact statement than to restate thesis statement. Okay, let's take a practice. We'll read the sample conclusion and then find the 3 components of the conclusion. Okay, to conclude, though freedom of speech is a key principle in human rights, this writer believes that it cannot be a free-for-all and there must be boundaries to avoid abuse and emergence of conflicts. It is hence crucial that sensitive issues like race, gender, and religion are protected from the ills of free, unrestrained speech. Freedom should be cherished and used responsibly. So, you're supposed to identify what is a thesis statement, what is the middle section, and last but not least, and the impact statement. Okay? We will pause now. Alright, if you need more time, please pause, otherwise we'll move on. So to conclude, if you see the linking word to conclude, it tells you that you are doing a conclusion. You can say in conclusion is fine as well. To sum it's all up, it's fine as well. Though freedom of speech is a key principle all the way to avoid abuse and emergence of conflict. Just now we talked about conflict. It's actually a rephrased thesis statement, which is can be found in your thesis statement at the start in your introduction. Okay, but this is a rephrase, so you do not use exactly the same word. Please take note. It is hence crucial that sensitive issues like race, gender, and religion is like a summary. It should be protected from free and unrestrained speech. A summary of what exactly the topics you have said and what to not to include here is that you shouldn't introduce new points. Okay, so freedom should be cherished and used responsibly. Your impact statement, that what is your belief and what in the future, what actually should it be. Okay, let's recap. You have restate thesis, summarize main ideas, and impact statement. And that will be all. Thank you.